Morning. Welcome to the second webinar in our series. Today's focus is all about how small teams can increase their design output with on-demand design support. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Azus, co-founder of DesignBees, and I'll be your host and moderator today. First of all, thank you for making the time to join us. We know how busy things can get, so we really appreciate you being here. Our goal today is to share some insights that not only add value, but might actually help free up more time in your day. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll feel it was time well spent. Just a quick bit of housekeeping before we dive in. The presentation will run for about 20 minutes, followed by time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to jot down any questions as we go. After the session, we'll share our recording and ask for your feedback so we can improve our webinars moving forward. And today, I'm joined by my co-founder and all-round busy bee, Liz Lord. I'll hand over to Liz for a quick intro.
Thank you, Nathan. That's me, all-round busy bee on all fronts. Nice to see you all. So I'm an ex-CMO. I was CMO of PayPal Australia. And since leaving, I've gone into fractional CMO work, often in much smaller businesses. And the one thing I observed everywhere was design bottlenecks and lots of people doing DIY design. And so I found a solution in an overseas providers of design, but thought, hang on, there's a bit of a gap here for Australia, hence founding DesignBees. So that's my background. I have a marketing background, but saw the bottlenecks on the design front.
Thanks, Liz. I'm Nathan Azus. Spent years in partnerships. I'm a co-founder of DesignBees with Liz, and most of my time now is spent talking to partners of DesignBees, helping them eradicate design headaches from their business. I'll hand over to Liz now just to take you through design bottlenecks and what it means for B2B teams.
Thank you, Nathan. So let's talk about the common challenges that happen in B2B. Like I say, I still work in B2B marketing, so I see it everywhere, but I've seen it in every single marketing team I've ever been in, is bottlenecks. You know, you never have a queue that's got nothing in it. There's always someone in the organization, oh, marketing, I'm sure they could just help us design that up. And another thing goes on. Or the CEO has a pet project that he needs some help with, and another design job comes on. But it's particularly exacerbated, we think, in B2B businesses. And that's generally because B2B marketing teams tend to be small. They're supporting a sales team, often a very demanding sales team who need to hit their goals and need leads. And on top of that, the evolution of marketing around ideal customer profiles has really accelerated in the last few years. So if we just look at the next slide and this concept of ideal customer profiles or ICPs, you can often find that a B2B business might have up to 5 ideal customer profiles, and they can be so different between the industry that you're actually pursuing as a target market. And of course, with the advent of LinkedIn, data lists, etc., you can target quite granular now between your different ICPs, which means that the way you'll sell your B2B product, the value prop, can be wildly different between one ideal customer profile and the other to make that message really resonate. And so what you tend to find is there's like a whole suite of assets just to support one ICP. If you've got 5 of them, that's a lot. Think about it. You've got case studies within your ICP. You might have dedicated landing pages that you point the traffic to if you're doing lead gen, dedicated pitch presentations that really pull out the pain points of that particular ICP that you're talking to, product sheets, FAQs. Perhaps one of your sales team is dedicated to a particular industry or vertical. They need content that keeps feeding the LinkedIn machine, demos, videos. The list goes on, and you can see if you're pursuing multiple ICPs as a business, that is a truckload of content for a very small team. And if you just move to the next slide, Nathan, the one thing that we're also observing is that AI is there. You know, you can pretty much whip up a case study in 10 minutes now with a few prompts of, you know, who you want it to feature, the benefits, etc. But where it comes unstuck is you've got all these documents with, you know, long form content, and then you're like, okay, how do I make this presentable to be used in the market? And that's where everything tends to bottleneck. And that's what we're observing at the moment. Certainly Nathan's talking to lots of people all the time and sees this. Is that right, Nathan?
Yeah, like AI really has just fast-tracked the creation and targeting of those marketing funnels for everybody. And we're just constantly hearing from the clients that we talk to that it gets to the pointy end and they need the materials and they need to ship them fast and they need to be able to support the sales teams that are often distributed. And that's where the real bottlenecks do come in for sure. So thinking about that, we wanted to just run a quick poll to see how currently you folks on here are tackling your design bottlenecks. So if you can jump on now and answer. By DIY design, we mean doing it yourself or with AI or your own tools. Do you pay a freelancer? We have an agency. We have an in-house designer currently, or a combo of all of the above. We can see the results rolling in. We'll give it a couple of more seconds. Two more people to answer. There we go. So 80% of the people on the call today, Liz, are DIY designing or using their own tools. 40%.
So the DIY design.
40% are using a freelancer, and 10% have their own in-house designer.
Yeah, that's certainly the observation that I've seen as I've gone into businesses. Everyone says, you know, oh, we're so busy, we can't get anything done. And then I look over at the team I've acquired when I've gone in and I go, so what do you spend the majority of your day doing? DIY design. I'm like, is there a better way to get that done that it doesn't absorb all your time? And, you know, frequently they're staying back late in the office or they're working their lunch breaks. And you just think, unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have DIY design tools and it had to be done by a professional designer. So, you know, my mind is always the marketeer should be adding value through the ways that they can. So, yeah, it's really interesting. That's what we tend to see, lots of DIY design happening. So let's consider if you're, you know, if you are in a bottleneck, what are the options you can pursue to get faster? And so we've laid out the 4 options down the side: DIY design, a freelancer, an agency, or an in-house team. And we've laid them against some variables of speed, quality, support, and cost. Now, most of those are reasonably intuitive. Speed, how fast it is. Quality, you know, what's the output like? Support, when we say support, we mean you're not a designer. And so if you want to just get it off your plate completely and forget about it, how much support does that particular option give you? And then the last thing is cost. And you can see here, it's really variable across all of the dynamics as to the outputs you might get. So let's think about DIY design or AI tools. Can be really fast. If you're doing something really simple, a quick tile on LinkedIn, you might get that done in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If on the other hand, you're dealing with a huge white paper or a case study that has to look amazing, that the salespeople are using, you can find that could take you 10, 15 hours. If you're not a trained designer, that can take you an awful lot of time to do. And when you're layering that in your normal day job, that's a big burden. Likewise, quality, you know, if you happen to be pretty nifty in Canva and you've got a good eye, you can get the right outputs. If on the other hand, you're not so nifty, you can end up looking like a bit of a dog's breakfast. And certainly we get people come to us that are halfway through something, they've just gone, help, I just can't finish it. And And so, you know, that mixed bag of quality when you're DIY designing. Support, it's all on you. There's nobody there to help you. Hence, you just got to sit there and you're committed and get it done. And cost, look, we put cost as a question mark, and that's mainly because you've got to think about the opportunity cost of you not doing something that adds more value, plus the cost of you and your resource. You know, the average Australian marketeer, junior, fully loaded, would be about $70 an hour. And why we say that, we mean super costs, you know, office costs, everything. And it could be anywhere up to 120 if you're, you know, 150 if you're really senior. And imagine you're paying $150 an hour for someone to do graphic design that could be done substantially cheaper. That does not make sense for a business. So that's what we always challenge, is what could you do differently if you had that time back, and what would you be able to do more of? And freelancers, if we look at the next slide, again, a bit of a mixed bag. If you've got a brilliant freelancer, we always say, you know, if it works, you don't break it. Because if you have a fantastic freelancer, it's great. If, on the other hand, you're back on Upwork all the time, trying to find a good freelancer, they happen to be busy at that time, they can't support you, they ghost you, they miss a few deadlines, all of a sudden, it's your problem again. And so it becomes, you know, the choice of freelancer, and it can be a bit erratic. But if you've got a great freelancer, that's excellent. We definitely advocate, you know, keeping a good freelancer. Agencies, you know, again, probably a very optimal model if cost is not an issue for you, because they're there for you on support and they can, you know, help you out. Same with an in-house team. They're there. Lots of green ticks there. The only downside is really the cost. If you're supporting a full-time in-house designer, it can be quite expensive, and often, you know, small marketing teams might not have that luxury. So that's kind of it laid out on a page. And what's happened recently, really coming from overseas, is this trend of what they call design subscriptions, which combines some elements of all of those 4 different options. So we just move to the next slide. What it is, it's monthly design packages, and they're basically flat rate packages that offer you a designer on demand for a set portion of hours a day. And what that does is it creates a reliable, cost-efficient designer to work on your jobs every day, whenever you need them. So it's kind of fusing together the best bits of some of the design options for scale. And if you flip to the next slide, please, Nathan, what it does is you tend to find it's speedy because they're there every day for you. You've got a set chunk of hours allocated to you. We also do, there's also plans that are weekly, which means you can have X amount of design hours a week. The quality's generally pretty good. The reason being, you're getting the same designer working on your jobs day in, day out, so they learn your brand. The support's there because they're there for you every day, come hell or high water. They're not going to ghost you. They're there. And, you know, the beauty of this model is these designers can be anywhere. And so the average cost of them for a really quality designer is pretty cost efficient compared to an Australian design headcount. So on all fronts, it kind of fuses together the best of some of the options you have available. And in terms of what you can do with a design package, they do vary from company to company. But from a B2B sense, excuse me, you know, lead hooks, presentations, capability statements, social posts, reels, GIFs, product demos. You can see some examples of things that we've done here for B2B organizations. And you can pretty much assume you can do everything. Some companies will limit what you can do on lower plans. You know, you can only have web page design on this plan and up. And that's mainly because those type of designers are more qualified in certain tools, and so they're a bit more expensive. So you tend to find that the plans will tell you what you can and can't do. And on top of that, you tend to find that you can't do HTML. So HTML and coding is not covered by most graphic design subscriptions. There are particular companies that can support HTML, but the majority is just graphic design per se. So in terms of how it works at a high level, imagine it a bit like a Spotify subscription, these plans, and you pay for them and you use it or lose it. So, you pay your Spotify subscription for the month of September. If you happen to not listen to one tune in the whole of September, you're still going to pay your $19 or whatever it is for premium Spotify. Very similar with a graphic design subscription. You pay your monthly fee, you pick the plan that suits you, whether it's the hours per day you need or the type of work you need doing. For example, if it's logo and branding, web design, you might have to move up to a slightly higher plan. You then put your design briefs in the portal, so everything's done online, and there's no setup calls, no briefing calls. So it saves quite a lot of overhead in just the process itself. You can put as many jobs in as you like. There's no cap to jobs that you can put in. The cap is essentially the plan that you pick and the hours that you have designed, in that there's only so many hours that the designer will work on, and they'll just chew through your jobs as you request. You can also reprioritize jobs. So let's say, for example, something comes in that's particularly urgent today and you've got 5 other jobs in queue. You can give it a priority 1, which tells your designer to kind of drop everything else and just work on this. So it's quite a flexible system. And typically, designs are ready anywhere between 1 and 3 days, and you review them. And then once they're approved, they get pushed out to you. So you can see that the design process, it kind of lives online and it works quite well in an online environment. And I think the next slide we've got actually gives you a super quick demo of this is just a really speeded up process of what it looks like. So you put your brief in online. We ask you, what do you want? Social media in this case. They want in a Facebook post, Facebook carousel. What's your format you want? And it gives you all the options. They want a JPEG. And then it tells you when your design is being worked on. And then when the design's ready, you'll get an email that says, please approve it or make changes. And you go into a special portal that allows you to approve or request changes. And then that's it. We just push you the files out. So you can see everything's done in a really online environment. No setup calls, and it's all pretty light touch enabled by the technology. So that's the system and how it works, just to give you an idea in a few steps as to how a design gets done. And I'm now going to hand back to Nathan.
Thanks for that, Liz. Now, usually at this point in the session, we'd like to bring one of our clients in so you can listen firsthand how they've worked with us and how they've benefited from using our platform. Unfortunately, Tasha, who was supposed to be here today, has been unable to make it. But last night I was able to manage and hustle and grab a little chat with her that we've managed to record, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, who is Tasha? Tasha is the head of marketing at Arcadia, who are an Australian B2B SaaS marketplace business. They operate in a number of industries and hence have multiple ICPs, which means Tasha's small marketing team have a truckload of content needs and are always behind the 8 ball when it comes to that. They've been a client of ours since August last year, and over that time, we've probably completed about 100 jobs for them. They use our 1.5 hour a day plan. We've worked on them from their corporate rebranding that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, to pitch decks, to product animations, and then just their social LinkedIn posts and those types of things. So, when we get a client that works with us, we try and give them the same dedicated designer, like Liz said earlier on, to ensure that we're able to move seamlessly through the different elements of work that they require. But look, let's listen to what Tasha has to say.
We're a mid-tier tech company and we don't have a big marketing team. We're actually owned by a private equity company, which some of you know that brings, significant pressure in terms of deliverables and output. We had a lot that we needed to do, and we were also in a bit of a turnaround phase at that point. And, really it's me in the marketing team and some juniorish staff. So we had junior staff spending some time faffing in Canva, to be honest with you, and they quite enjoyed it as a mental break. I enjoyed it less because it meant that it was distracting them from doing actual marketing work. And look, they could come up with something half decent. But the problem was, it's just, it's kind of a waste of our resources, right? We were paying marketing people to play in Canva, and we just weren't getting the output. We really had a lot to do, and there's just no way that we could push through and get all those deliverables out the door.
What would you say to others who might be considering using Design Bees or a service similar to ours for the first time?
Look, we are so happy with it, and I think what I would say is it's kind of a no-brainer because it is low risk. You do not have to commit to 12 months. You can try it for a month. You can try it on the lower package or the middle package and put in a few things and see if you're happy with it. Like it's just, I think you'll find that the quality is, top notch, right? That the quality is optimal, and even the process is really fluid and streamlined. Like we've just had no problems. It's so nice, to sort of be able to work with a company where we feel that it's just one thing that we don't have to worry about.
So what I love there is that Tasha says that there's just one less thing to worry about now. So, if you're sat there and you find yourself in a similar situation, you've got design bottlenecks and you do need one less thing to worry about, then, now could be the time for you to consider a design package. And just before we jump into the Q&A, I just want to take a moment to recap about Design Bees. From the very outset, when Liz and I co-founded Design Bees, we always wanted to aim and help small Aussie businesses and founders. We knew that there was a problem and we wanted them to better help them manage their design needs. As a result, many of our partners, some of the logos you can see here today, are exactly that. But as the platforms kind of matured, the reviews have flowed in and the majority of them are very positive. We've started to see bigger brands such as Google, Zero Latency, Alder Construction join us. That's because budgets are getting tighter, resources are becoming stretched, and having an on-demand design team who are already there to adapt to your needs and pick up those design workflows as you require them just makes no sense. With our plans, you can go from 4 hours a week all the way up to a dedicated designer for 3.5 hours a day. So companies like Google change plans and move with us as their work flows. And peak load times, sometimes they even double up and take a couple of 3.5-hour designers. So it really is flexible and it's there to suit your needs. But we understand that, you might be feeling a little bit nervous about trying out a new platform from a startup that's Australian that you've never really heard anything about. What if they don't hit the mark? How does it work? Could I use the platform? I'm not sure how to write a brief. They're the types of questions that I get asked on a daily basis from people who I talk to. So we've decided to allow people to test us out. We'll do a design on us. That's a no commitment trial. You can submit one design. We'll tackle it over the course of 4 hours. If you like it, then that's great. We'll continue a partnership on one of our plans. But if you don't, then you can just walk away. We'll watermark the design and we'll both say, yeah, no, it didn't work. Like we're not there for everybody. So that's one of our commitments. We'll do one free design just so you can try out the platform to see if we're right for you. I think now we'll jump into Q&A. And look, if you've got a question, if those slides or if anything that Liz noted stirred a question in you, then just fire them away to us. Jump in. Oh, here's one. This one's for you, Liz. How do you ensure brand consistency?
Right, yeah, it's a good question. So when a new customer comes in, we collect all of their brand identity. So, brand guidelines, fonts, logos, imagery, etc. For some companies, very small companies, they may not have any of that, in which case they'll just say, here's our website. this is what we want it to look like, and that's the extent of the brand guidelines. In other cases, like Google, there's a whole portal full of brand content. So yeah, so we collect your brand guidelines, and whichever designer is working on your brand, obviously it's usually the same one. We try as much as possible to assign the same designer so that they learn your brand over time. Obviously that's not always possible. Holidays and you know, capability on some jobs, so that's why we have your brand loaded onto our drive so someone else can look at it. And essentially each job that we do, we also add a layer of quality control, which is we have a traffic manager, account manager, and they check all of the jobs versus the brief and the brand before they come out. And they, you know, they're not an art director, but they will pick up major kind of doozies around brand and guidelines, because they've also got the second oversight.
But we have a second set of eyes. We check the briefs and then check the work before it goes back to the customer. Here's one that was sent in earlier. But how do you ensure the quality as well, Liz? Not only on the brand, but quality control of the jobs and the briefs?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, we have a traffic manager who kind of oversees all the jobs and who's working on what. And before it comes to you as a review, a second pair of eyes is passed over it other than the designer. And they check the original brief. Has the brief been met? Has the designer done what's been asked of the brief? And they will send back changes before it even reaches you if they find typos, you know, a misallocation of an image versus a brief, and they'll send it back and get it corrected. So on top of the design hours you also get this second pair of eyes that's reviewing everything before it comes to you.
Now here's a good one. Are you using AI? And if so, how do you use it? You or me, Liz?
You can answer that.
Look, AI is an opportunity for all of us. We use it to accelerate our design work. I think the designers use AI to get ideas and commence their work, but every design that we output, the final touch point is a human. We definitely believe like the future of design is a hybrid between AI and human. You know, as Liz said early on in the presentation, AI can only get you so far. I think there's probably everybody on here with so many people self-designing who have used or have tried AI. It has its limitations. So we do use it, but every piece of work that we output formally and share with clients definitely has human touch and human element added to it. And that's the final check from our point of view.
I see 3 other questions as well. Do you see them, Nathan?
I can't see them at my end, so you fire
All right,
away with
I can see them. So Mr. Saxon Shirley has a question. Hello, Saxon. How do you deal with IP? Do you sign NDAs? We absolutely do. All our designers are on NDAs with a few clients. So yeah, it really is up to the client, but we've signed a bunch of NDAs with various product launches that we're working on with some of our clients. So yes, absolutely we do. The next question is from Mario, is how do you ensure assets are delivered in expected industry best practice times rather than on the designer's capabilities? So that's a good question. What we do is we generally ask, when a brief comes in, we put a rough sizing on it, as in, you know, we have a list of how long it takes roughly to do various things, you know, whether it's a GIF, an animation, a presentation. And so every job we give to a designer has a rough estimation on it, which is industry practice best, you know, times. And then the designer is KPI'd with that. Obviously, it really is how long is a piece of string, because if a client puts in multiple changes, which they can do, you know, often we find because the overheads are quite low and because the consistency is there, we find that often a client can put something in, see how it looks, and then go, that's not suiting me, and actually make a lot of revisions off the back of it, and they can do that within the hours they've got. So yeah, so the guidelines are there to help the designer, but obviously it can go on and on if the client, you know, uses the design process to kind of flesh out what they really want in their mind. And sometimes that's a bit of an iterative process. But yeah, we do give guidelines.
I do see them now. My computer has stopped glitching. Vanessa, how do you select your designers, and do I get a choice on which designer you allocate to my work? Vanessa, from our point of view, when you submit your work, our ops manager will choose and select the best designer on our team for the type of work you want completed. If there are via revisions, you don't like that feedback, or you give us feedback that you don't like the design work, then we'll change your designer. And then if your work briefs change with us, you know, say you're doing a load of socials, then all of a sudden you want to go to some capability documents or different type of design work, we'll always optimize your work to give you the best designer who's got the best skill set to suit your work. So you don't get to deal with the designer directly to answer your question directly. You work with our ops manager, but we always optimize the designer for the work that you've briefed. All right, we're 2 minutes over, so I just wanted to say thank you. We hope you found it useful. You've learned a little bit something, and it gave you an idea of how maybe you can tackle a design bottleneck. If you'd like to know more, you can use the QR code on screen now to book a quick demo with myself. We'll be resharing the recording in the coming days. We'll drop you a quick follow-up call at some point next week just to check in, and hopefully we'll get to see you at the next webinar. Thanks from me.
Thank you.
Thanks from Liz.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.